I never thought one night could change everything I believed about love, pain, and second chances. It all started the evening my billionaire boss, Ethan Cole, asked me to accompany him to a charity gala, something that instantly set my heart racing, though I tried not to show it. I was just his personal assistant, invisible among the polished faces in his world of luxury and power. But that night, he looked at me differently, with eyes that almost seemed to see the woman I'd hidden beneath years of heartbreak. The moment he mentioned the gala, I froze, because my ex, Ryan, was going to be there, my ex who had broken me in ways I still couldn't say out loud. Ryan wasn't just any man. He was the one who left me standing in the rain on our wedding day because I wasn't good enough for his family. I wanted to decline Ethan's offer, to avoid reopening those wounds, but he tilted his head and said softly, "You need to show him what he lost." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. How could a billionaire like him care about my messy past? Yet there was something in his tone, protective, firm, almost personal, that made me say yes. The night of the party, my heart pounded as I stepped out of the car beside Ethan. The flash of cameras, the glint of diamonds, the whispers, all of it felt unreal. He offered his arm and whispered near my ear, "Let them believe whatever they want tonight." When I looked up at him, his eyes held mine in a way that made breathing difficult. Then, as we entered the ballroom, Ryan's gaze found me. His expression shifted from arrogance to disbelief, then jealousy. And before I could even process it, Ethan slipped his hand around my waist and smiled proudly, as if to say I was his. My pulse raced. Every step we took together felt like a performance, but one that started feeling too real. I didn't know what was more terrifying, seeing my ex's face burn with regret, or realizing that the man pretending to be my boyfriend might be awakening feelings I had sworn to bury forever. The music was soft and elegant, yet every note seemed to echo my pounding heartbeat. Ethan guided me through the crowd with effortless confidence, his hand still resting lightly on my waist as if it belonged there. People greeted him with admiration and curiosity, their eyes flicking to me, whispering things I couldn't hear. I felt exposed, like I was living someone else's life. When Ryan finally approached us, his smirk carried the same arrogance I remembered all too well. "Didn't expect to see you here, Lily," he said, his voice dripping with fake charm. Before I could respond, Ethan tightened his hold slightly and said in that calm, commanding tone of his, "Why wouldn't she be? She's my girlfriend." My breath caught. The words hung in the air, heavy and electric. Ryan's smile faltered, and his eyes darted between us. I could almost hear the wheels turning in his head, trying to make sense of how his ex-fiancée ended up on the arm of one of the most powerful men in the city. "Girlfriend?" Ryan repeated, forcing a laugh that didn't reach his eyes. "That's surprising." Ethan smiled, unbothered. "It's surprising how easily people overlook the extraordinary when they're too busy chasing the superficial." The look in Ethan's eyes told me his words weren't just for Ryan. They were for me too. I felt something shift inside me, something warm and fragile. For the rest of the evening, Ethan played the role perfectly, attentive, protective, yet never crossing a line that would make me uncomfortable. When he brushed a strand of hair behind my ear or leaned close to whisper something, it sent shivers down my spine, but not out of fear. It felt safe, real. As the night went on, Ryan kept watching us, and I realized how satisfying it was to see the man who once crushed me now drowning in his own regret. But beneath the glitter and champagne, I couldn't shake a strange feeling. Ethan's eyes weren't just performing. They carried something deeper, almost painful, like he understood heartbreak too well. And when the lights dimmed for the final dance, he looked at me and said softly, "Let's give them something to remember." Before I could ask what he meant, he pulled me closer, and everything around us faded. When Ethan pulled me into his arms, the world seemed to slow down. The lights softened, The chatter faded, and all I could feel was the warmth of his hand on the small of my back and the steady rhythm of his heartbeat against mine. I tried to tell myself it was just an act, a convincing performance to put Ryan in his place, but the way Ethan's eyes searched mine said otherwise. "You deserve to be seen, Lily," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the music. I swallowed hard, trying to ignore the sudden lump in my throat. "Ethan, this isn't real," I murmured, my voice trembling. "Maybe not," he replied, "but it could be." The word sent a jolt through me, confusing and terrifying. I wasn't ready to believe again, not after the way Ryan had shattered me. But Ethan's sincerity broke through the walls I had built so carefully around my heart. Just then, I caught sight of Ryan watching us, his jaw clenched, his eyes dark with something between anger and envy. He started walking toward us, determination in every step. My pulse quickened. Ethan noticed him too, and instead of letting go, he pulled me closer, his hand cupping my face as his thumb brushed my cheek. "Just trust me," he whispered, and before I could breathe another word, his lips met mine. The kiss wasn't rough or forced, it was gentle, deliberate, like he wanted to erase every scar Ryan had left on me. The room seemed to gasp, cameras flashed, and my knees nearly gave out from the rush of emotion. When he finally pulled away, my vision blurred, not from embarrassment, but from the unexpected truth I felt in that single moment. Ryan's face twisted in fury, and he stormed off without another word, disappearing into the sea of expensive suits and glittering gowns. I stood there frozen, my lips still tingling, my heart caught between disbelief and longing. Ethan's gaze lingered on me, softer now. "He doesn't deserve your tears," he said gently, "but I'd fight for your smile any day." I wanted to speak, to question what just happened, but my voice refused to cooperate. Because deep down, I already knew one kiss had just changed everything. After the kiss, everything felt different. The air between us buzzed with something unspoken, something neither of us dared to name. As we left the ballroom, flashes from cameras followed us, and whispers trailed in our wake. I could feel people's eyes on me, the poor assistant who somehow caught the attention of the city's most unattainable billionaire. When we reached the car, Ethan opened the door for me, and his usual composure had softened into something warmer. The moment I sat down, my hands began to tremble. I wasn't sure if it was from shock, or from the way his lips still lingered in my memory. During the drive, silence filled the space between us until Ethan finally said, "I didn't mean to overstep, Lily. But I couldn't watch him treat you like that." His tone was calm but heavy with sincerity. I looked at him, trying to read the truth behind his eyes. "It felt real," I admitted softly, almost afraid of my own words. He glanced at me, his jaw tightening slightly. "Maybe because it was," he said, his voice deep and steady. My heart skipped a beat. I wanted to believe him, but everything inside me screamed caution. Men like Ethan didn't fall for women like me. I was ordinary, broken even. He was the kind of man who could have anyone. Yet that night he had chosen to stand beside me, to protect me when I felt small. As the city lights flashed past the windows, memories of Ryan's betrayal replayed in my mind, how he had called me a phase, how he'd told me I would never fit into his world. But tonight I had walked through that world, not as a shadow, but as someone seen. When Ethan dropped me off at my apartment, I hesitated before stepping out. "Thank you," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "for pretending." He looked at me for a long moment, his eyes dark and unreadable. "Who said I was pretending?" he replied before driving away. I stood there on the sidewalk, speechless, the night air cold against my skin, but my heart burning with confusion. That kiss had started as an act, but what if it wasn't one for him? The next morning I woke up to chaos. My phone buzzed endlessly with messages, calls, and notifications from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Photos from the gala were everywhere on gossip sites, social media, and even trending news headlines. Billionaire Ethan Cole and his mysterious girlfriend share a passionate kiss. My heart pounded as I scrolled through the endless comments. Some called me lucky, others called me a gold digger. But all I could think about was that one line Ethan had said before he drove off. Who said I was pretending? I couldn't stop replaying it in my mind. At work later that day, whispers followed me through the hallways. Every assistant, every executive seemed to have something to say, but no one dared to ask me directly. When I finally entered Ethan's office, he was standing by the window, looking out at the skyline like a man lost in thought. "You're early," he said without turning around. "Couldn't sleep," I admitted, my voice barely steady. He turned to face me then, and for a moment, I saw something in his eyes that I couldn't name vulnerability, maybe even guilt. "About last night," I began. "People think—" He interrupted softly. "Let them think whatever they want. What matters is what you think." I swallowed hard. "I think I'm confused," I said honestly. He took a few steps toward me, each one slow and deliberate. "Lily, I didn't kiss you to make a scene. I kissed you because I couldn't stop myself." My breath caught. I wanted to believe him, but my heart was still covered in the scars Ryan had left. "Ethan, I can't be another charity project or a temporary distraction," I whispered. His eyes darkened with hurt. "Is that what you think I'm doing?" he asked, almost offended. "You don't know what it's like to be used," I blurted, my voice breaking. "To be made to feel small, unworthy." He exhaled slowly, his tone softening. "You'd be surprised what I know about being used." For the first time, I saw a flicker of pain cross his face, like there was a story behind his perfect exterior. In that silent moment between us, something deeper began to unravel, something I wasn't sure either of us was ready to face. That night, I couldn't shake the look in Ethan's eyes, the way his confidence had cracked just for a second, when he said he knew what it felt like to be used. It haunted me. The next day at the office, things were quieter, almost too quiet. The rumors had spread like wildfire, but Ethan acted as if nothing had happened. Meetings, calls, deadlines, everything went on as usual. Yet beneath the surface, I felt a tension between us, heavy and unspoken. Around noon, he called me into his office. "Close the door," he said softly. I obeyed, my pulse quickening. He gestured for me to sit. "I owe you an explanation," he began, his tone unusually vulnerable. "Years ago, before I built my company, I was engaged." My eyes widened. I had never heard him speak about his personal life before. "She left me," he continued, staring down at his hands. "Not because I wasn't good enough, but because I wasn't rich enough. Her family said I was a risk, and she believed them." He gave a small, bitter smile. "So I made sure I'd never be that powerless again." I felt my chest tighten. His story mirrored mine more than I expected. "Ethan," I whispered. He looked up, and for the first time, there was no wall between us, no mask of confidence or control. "When I saw your ex that night," he said, "I saw myself years ago standing there, being told I'd never be enough. I couldn't let him make you feel that way again." My throat burned with unshed tears. "You didn't have to protect me," I murmured. "I did," he said simply, "because I care." The words hung in the air, raw and trembling. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then his phone rang, shattering the fragile stillness. He answered it quickly, his expression hardening as he listened. "What?" he said sharply. His eyes flicked toward me, suddenly cold and calculating again. "We'll handle it." He hung up and turned to me, all emotion gone from his face. "Ryan sold photos of us to the press," he said flatly. My stomach dropped. "What? Why?" "Because he wants to destroy me and use you to do it." The warmth between us vanished, replaced by fear. My past had come back, and now it threatened to ruin us both. The moment Ethan said those words, my heart stopped. Ryan sold the photos? My mind raced, trying to piece together why he would do something so cruel. He's saying I used company funds to impress you, Ethan said, his voice clipped, pacing the floor with restrained fury. They're painting you as my mistress, Lily. My stomach twisted. That's not true, I blurted. Everyone knows that's not true. But deep down, I knew the world didn't care about the truth, just about the story. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, frustration etched across his face. I can handle the press, but I don't want you dragged into this mess. I shook my head, my voice trembling. You think I'll just hide while people destroy you because of me? No, Ethan, I won't. He stopped pacing and looked at me, surprise flashing in his eyes. You're stronger than you think, he said softly. But I didn't feel strong. I felt terrified. That afternoon, everything spiraled. Reporters camped outside the building. Headlines screamed lies about our so-called secret affair, and anonymous messages filled my inbox, calling me names that stabbed deeper than I wanted to admit. My colleagues avoided eye contact, whispering as I passed. I'd worked so hard to build a respectable life after Ryan, and now it was all slipping away again because of him. By evening, Ethan's assistant told me the board demanded a meeting to address the scandal. I walked into that boardroom shaking, feeling the weight of 100 judging eyes. Ethan stood tall beside me, but even he couldn't hide the storm brewing inside him. One of the executives sneered. This could destroy the company's reputation, Ethan. You should cut her loose. My throat tightened, humiliation burning my cheeks. Before I could speak, Ethan's voice thundered. No one touches her. Not while I'm here. The room fell silent. His gaze swept across the table like a force of nature. She's innocent. And if any of you had half her integrity, this company wouldn't be worried about a headline. For a second, no one dared to breathe. When the meeting ended, he turned to me and said quietly, I'll fix this, Lily. I promise. But I saw the exhaustion in his eyes. And for the first time I realized he wasn't just fighting for me. He was risking everything. That night I couldn't sleep. My name was all over the internet, twisted into something ugly. Every time I refreshed the news feed, there was another article questioning my character, another photo dissected by strangers who didn't even know me. I wanted to hide, but the one thing that kept me from collapsing completely was Ethan. Around midnight, he called. Pack a bag, he said quietly. We're getting out of the city for a few days. Before I could argue, he added, Please, Lily, I need you safe. Something in his voice, raw, pleading, made me agree. A few hours later, we were driving toward his private villa by the sea. The moment we arrived, I stepped out and felt the cold breeze wrap around me, carrying the sound of crashing waves. For the first time in days, I could breathe. Ethan led me inside, where the warmth of the fireplace flickered across his face. You shouldn't have to run, I murmured, sinking into the sofa. I'm the reason this happened. He sat across from me, shaking his head. You're the reason I remember what it's like to care about something real. The honesty in his voice made my heart ache. Ethan, I whispered, why are you doing all this for me? He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, eyes locked on mine. Because when I lost everything years ago, no one stood by me. I won't make that mistake again. Silence stretched between us, heavy and intimate. Outside, the ocean roared, and for a moment, it felt like the rest of the world didn't exist. Then, without thinking, I reached out and touched his hand. He didn't pull away. His fingers tightened around mine, firm and reassuring. We'll get through this, he said softly. Together. That one word echoed inside me like a promise. But as peaceful as the night seemed, I couldn't shake the feeling that the storm wasn't over. The next morning, Ethan stepped outside to take a call, his voice tense. I stood by the window watching him pace along the balcony. When he came back in, his expression was grim. Ryan's not done, he said, his tone low and dangerous. He wants money or he's releasing more lies. My blood ran cold. Ryan had betrayed me once before, but this time, he might destroy both of us. When Ethan said Ryan wanted money, my whole body went numb. "He's blackmailing you?" I whispered, barely able to form the words. Ethan nodded slowly, his jaw tightening. "He has fake documents, mails, receipts. He's trying to make it look like I paid you for personal reasons." My stomach twisted with disgust. "That's a lie. He can't do that." Ethan gave a bitter laugh. "He can and he will. He's desperate, and the media doesn't wait for the truth." I felt anger bubbling up inside me, hotter than fear. I had spent too long being Ryan's victim. He had humiliated me once, broken me into pieces, and walked away without remorse. I wouldn't let him destroy another part of my life. "No," I said, standing straighter. "I'm not hiding anymore. He wants attention? I'll give it to him." Ethan frowned, concern flickering in his eyes. "Lily, don't do anything reckless." But I had already made up my mind. The next morning, I contacted one of the journalists who had written about us, the only one who had seemed fair in her reporting. I sent her a message. "I have something to say, but I'll only say it live." Ethan tried to stop me, but when he saw the determination in my eyes, he finally sighed and said, "If you're doing this, I'm standing beside you." That evening, we appeared together in front of cameras. My hands trembled, but Ethan's presence grounded me. "People have said a lot about me," I began, my voice steadying with each word. "But the truth is simple. I wasn't his mistress. I was his employee. And that kiss everyone keeps replaying, it wasn't scandal. It was strength. It was the moment I stopped being afraid of the man who broke me." I saw the reporter's eyes widen slightly, sensing the emotion behind my words. Ethan spoke next, calm but firm. "I won't pay a single cent to silence a liar. Ryan Adams tried to manipulate an innocent woman, and now he's trying to manipulate the public. But I built my empire on truth, and I'll defend her name with mine." Cameras flashed wildly, questions flew, but in that moment, standing beside Ethan, I felt powerful again. For the first time, I wasn't a victim in Ryan's story. I was rewriting my own. The live interview changed everything. Within hours, the internet that once tore me apart began to shift. People started seeing through Ryan's lies. Hashtags supporting me flooded social media, and major outlets began retracting their earlier stories. But it wasn't over yet. The next day, the police received an anonymous leak proof that Ryan had forged documents and fabricated evidence. His own greed had exposed him. When I saw his arrest on the evening news, I didn't feel joy, just a deep, quiet peace. For so long I'd carried the weight of what he did to me, the humiliation, the self-doubt, the fear of never being enough. Now, for the first time, that weight lifted. Ethan came to my apartment that night. He didn't say a word at first. He just stood there, his expression soft, the tension gone from his shoulders. "It's over," I whispered, almost in disbelief. He nodded slowly. "You did it, Lily. You faced him head-on." I smiled faintly. "No, we did." He stepped closer, his gaze searching mine. "You know, when I asked you to come to that gala, I thought I was helping you face your past. But somewhere along the way, you helped me face mine." I felt tears sting my eyes. "Ethan," before I could say more, he took my hands in his and said gently, "That kiss, it wasn't just a moment. It was a beginning." My heart fluttered, fragile but alive. The city lights outside painted golden reflections across his face, and for the first time, I let myself imagine a future without fear. "So what happens now?" I asked softly. He smiled, that rare, genuine smile that reached his eyes. "Now we stop pretending." His lips brushed against mine again, but this time there were no cameras, no crowd, no act, just truth. When we finally pulled apart, I felt lighter, stronger, reborn. Life had come full circle, from the woman abandoned in the rain to the one who stood tall beside a man who saw her worth. Maybe one kiss really had changed everything. Not because it was perfect, but because it reminded me that real love isn't about status or power. It's about courage, respect, and finally believing you're enough. And this time I did.